Scene script. Has it ever crossed your mind how the Israel-Palestine conflict, one of the longest-running disputes in modern history, began? Picture a chessboard. Each square, each piece, each move represents a complex element of the Israel-Palestine conflict. A conflict that has been ongoing for over a century, its roots tangled in a web of historical, religious, and political intricacies. This isn't just a dispute between two nations over land. It's a testament to the enduring human struggle for identity, sovereignty, and survival. Consider the global impact. The reverberations of this conflict have echoed far beyond the borders of Israel and Palestine. It has shaped international relations, influenced political campaigns, stirred passionate debates, and sparked violent clashes. It's a conflict that has held the world's attention hostage, and its resolution, or lack thereof, holds the key to regional stability and peace. Now let's consider the key players. On one side, we have Israel, a state established in the aftermath of the Second World War, a homeland for the Jewish people who have faced centuries of persecution. On the other side, we have Palestine, a nation striving for recognition and sovereignty, inhabited by a people who have lived through displacement and occupation. And then there are the outsiders, the international community, the superpowers, the United Nations, each with their own stakes, agendas, and influences. They play crucial roles, sometimes as mediators, other times as instigators, but always as influential forces shaping the course of the conflict. This is not a simple story of right versus wrong or good versus evil. It's a narrative woven with shades of gray, a multitude of perspectives, and a shared history of pain and resilience. It's a tale that has evolved over time, each chapter adding another layer of complexity. So, how did it all begin? What events led to the creation of Israel? How did Palestine respond? What has been the role of the international community, and where do we stand today? These are some of the questions we'll explore as we journey through the history of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Now let's delve into the roots of this enduring conflict. To understand this conflict, we must travel back in time, thousands of years, to the ancient civilizations that once inhabited this land. Let's start with the Israelite kingdom, which emerged around the 11th century BCE. This period, rich in biblical history, saw the reigns of renowned figures like King David and his son Solomon, who is credited with building the first temple in Jerusalem. This temple was not just a structure of stone and wood, but an embodiment of the Jewish faith and spiritual identity. However, peace didn't last for long. In the 6th century BCE, the Babylonians swept into the region, destroying the first temple and marking the beginning of the Jewish diaspora, the dispersion of Jews beyond Israel. In the following years, the region witnessed a succession of conquerors, from the Persians, who allowed the Jews to return and build the Second Temple, to the Greeks and finally the Romans. Under Roman rule, the region was renamed Palestine, a name that has persisted till today. The destruction of the Second Temple by the Romans in 70 CE triggered another Jewish diaspora, further scattering the Jewish people across different parts of the globe. Yet, the connection to this land, to Jerusalem, remained a focal point in Jewish life and prayer. But the significance of this region isn't limited to Judaism. It's also a sacred land for Christians, who believe that Jesus was crucified and resurrected in Jerusalem, and for Muslims, who revere Jerusalem as the site where Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven. Over the centuries, the land saw the rise and fall of empires, from the Islamic caliphates to the Crusaders, Ottomans, and the British. Each left their mark, shaping the cultural, religious, and political fabric of the region. As we walk through the corridors of history, it's clear that this piece of land, smaller than the state of New Jersey, has been a crossroads for three of the world's major religions, a battleground for empires, and a homeland for different peoples. Fast forward to the 20th century, where the conflict takes a familiar shape. The year 1917 marked a significant turning point with the Balfour Declaration. This was a letter written by Britain's Foreign Secretary, Arthur Balfour, to Lord Rothschild, a leading figure in the Jewish community. The letter expressed Britain's support for a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, then under Ottoman rule. This was a momentous shift, symbolizing the first significant assertion of international support for the establishment of a Jewish homeland. However, it's important to note that the Balfour Declaration also stated that this should not prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine. The declaration ignited hope among Jews worldwide, but was met with apprehension and resistance by the Arab majority residing in Palestine. It sowed the seeds of conflict, as both the Jewish and Arab populations felt entitled to the same land. This promise set the stage for the events that followed. Post-World War II, the world was changing, and so was Palestine. The war had left an indelible mark on the global landscape, and the horrors of the Holocaust had profoundly affected the Jewish community. The world had witnessed the systematic extermination of 6 million Jews, a genocide that shook humanity to its core. In the aftermath, many Jewish survivors found themselves without a home, their communities annihilated, their lives irrevocably altered. The need for a safe haven was never more apparent, and the eyes of the Jewish diaspora turned toward Palestine, a land associated with their ancestral and religious roots. However, the influx of Jewish immigrants into Palestine did not go uncontested. The local Arab population, who had been living there for centuries, viewed this as an invasion of their homeland. The increasing tensions between the Arab and Jewish communities ignited a volatile atmosphere, setting the stage for a conflict that would shape the future of the Middle East. On May 14, 1948, in the wake of the British withdrawal, the State of Israel was proclaimed. The creation of a Jewish state was seen by many as a just response to the atrocities of the Holocaust, a sanctuary where Jews could live free from the fears that had haunted their history. Yet, the very next day, the newly born nation found itself under attack from its Arab neighbors. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War had begun. It was a brutal and bloody conflict, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. When the armistice lines were drawn in 1949, Israel had not only survived its baptism of fire, but had also expanded its territory. The birth of Israel marked a significant turning point in the history of the Middle East. It was a beacon of hope for many Jews, a symbol of their resilience and determination. But for the Palestinians, it was a catastrophe, a Nakba, resulting in displacement and loss. The birth of Israel ignited a series of conflicts that still resonate today. The year 1967 brought the Six-Day War, a pivotal moment in this ongoing conflict. This was a swift and decisive military campaign that saw Israel square off against Arab nations, including Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. The tension had been simmering for years, with frequent border skirmishes and political disagreements. Egypt's decision to close the Straits of Tiran to Israeli ships in May of that year was the final straw. Israel, feeling cornered and isolated, decided to strike first. On the morning of June 5th, Israeli aircraft launched a surprise attack on Egyptian airfields. The war had begun. Over the course of 6 days, Israel's military might proved overwhelming. By the time a ceasefire was agreed upon on June 10th, Israel had gained control of the Gaza Strip and the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt, the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan, and the Golan Heights from Syria. The aftermath of the war was just as significant as the war itself. Israel's victory meant that the map of the Middle East was redrawn. The occupation of the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip, led to a significant increase in the number of Palestinians living under Israeli control. This occupation, now entering its 6th decade, has been the source of significant controversy and conflict. The war also led to a shift in the dynamics of the region. The Arab nations, humiliated by their defeat, were even more resolved to reclaim their lost territories. On the other hand, Israel, emboldened by its victory, believed it could negotiate from a position of strength. This set the stage for future negotiations and conflicts. In the end, the Six-Day War was more than just a military confrontation. It was a turning point that redefined the parameters of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It highlighted the complex and deeply rooted issues at the heart of this dispute. This war drastically altered the landscape of the conflict. As we move into the late 20th and early 21st centuries, the conflict intensified with 2 intifadas and various peace initiatives. The word intifada means uprising in Arabic and refers to the periods of intensified Palestinian protest and violence against Israeli rule. The first intifada began in 1987, sparked by a traffic accident that killed 4 Palestinians. What started as spontaneous protests and civil disobedience soon escalated into a full-scale uprising. Palestinians threw stones and Molotov cocktails, while the Israeli military responded with tear gas and rubber bullets. This went on for 6 years. The Second Intifada, also known as the Al-Aqsa Intifada, erupted in 2000. This time, the violence was more severe and included suicide bombings and military operations. It lasted 5 years and resulted in a significant loss of life on both sides. In the midst of these uprisings, efforts were made to broker peace. The Oslo Accords, signed in 1993, marked the first face-to-face agreement between the government of Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization. This agreement led to mutual recognition and the creation of the Palestinian Authority, but it failed to bring a lasting peace. The Camp David Summit in 2000 was another critical peace initiative. It aimed to finalize the status of Jerusalem and the right of return for Palestinian refugees. Despite days of negotiations, the summit ended without an agreement, marking a significant setback in the peace process. Throughout these periods, international players like the United States, the European Union, Russia, and the United Nations played significant roles. They offered mediation, facilitated peace talks, and provided humanitarian aid. Yet their efforts, like those of the Israelis and Palestinians, were often met with obstacles and setbacks. Despite these efforts, the conflict remains unresolved. The journey to peace is complex and fraught with challenges, but the hope for a solution continues to drive many on both sides of the divide. Present day, the conflict continues, with new challenges and complexities. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, a saga that has spanned more than a century, remains a poignant and polarizing issue. At the heart of this modern-day impasse lies a tangle of thorny issues, including Israeli settlements, the status of Jerusalem, and the role of Hamas. Israeli settlements in the West Bank have long been a source of contention. These residential areas, built on lands captured by Israel in the Six-Day War, are seen by many international observers as a major obstacle to peace. They're viewed as a violation of international law, yet for many Israelis, they're considered a legitimate expression of their historical and religious ties to the land. The status of Jerusalem is another pivotal point in this conflict. This ancient city, sacred to Jews, Muslims, and Christians alike, lies at the very heart of the Israeli-Palestinian dispute. Both sides claim it as their capital. Israel asserts its sovereignty over the entire city, while Palestinians demand East Jerusalem as the capital of a future Palestinian state. And then there's the role of Hamas. This Palestinian political and military organization, labeled as a terrorist group by many countries, governs the Gaza Strip. Its refusal to recognize Israel's right to exist and its commitment to armed resistance have complicated peace efforts. The conflict, however, is not just a matter of politics and territorial disputes. It's about people. It's about the daily lives of Israelis and Palestinians, lives often marked by fear, uncertainty, and resilience. It's about children growing up amidst tension and adults striving for normalcy in a landscape of conflict. The future of this conflict remains uncertain, but understanding its history is key to seeking potential solutions. As we navigate the complexities of the present, we must remember the lessons of the past, hoping they can guide us towards a future of peace and coexistence. We've journeyed through thousands of years, witnessing the birth and evolution of one of the world's most complex conflicts. From the ancient times of kingdoms and empires, where the land now known as Israel and Palestine was a thriving hub of civilization, to the transformative events of the 20th century, the conflict's roots run deep. The Balfour Declaration, a significant milestone, set the stage for the creation of a national home for the Jewish people. It was a promise made in the midst of World War I, a war that changed the face of the globe and set the stage for a new world order. Yet, it was a promise that also sparked decades of strife and contention. The aftermath of World War II and the horrors of the Holocaust led to the creation of Israel, a homeland for Jews. Yet, this birth was not without its pains. The establishment of Israel displaced hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, sowing the seeds of resentment and conflict that would grow and multiply over the ensuing decades. The Six-Day War, a momentous event, changed the landscape of the region yet again. Israel's victory and subsequent occupation of territories like the West Bank and Gaza Strip brought new dimensions to the conflict, with issues of security, sovereignty, and human rights coming to the fore. Attempts at peace, such as the Oslo Accords, have been made, punctuated by periods of intense violence, known as Intifadas. Yet these have not been able to resolve the core issues at the heart of the conflict. Today, the situation remains fraught with tension. The complexities of history, politics, and religion intertwine, making any resolution a challenging task. The Israel-Palestine conflict is not just about land or borders, but about identities, narratives, and the quest for justice and peace. While we may not have all the answers, we hope this exploration has provided some clarity on the roots of the Israel-Palestine conflict.